So I want to talk to you about the shift that happens when you start resting more. So a lot of people think that they're well energized, and yet really it's just that they're stressed. And they're doing things that repetitively stress them in order to have the feeling of energy. Actually, what's happening is energy is being released from the body by the upregulation of stress hormones like cortisol. And often this is the case with things like fasting, things like ice baths, things like saunas, and all of that. Okay, so this isn't to say that there isn't a place for those things. I'm absolutely not saying that. What I'm saying is there's a difference between energy cultivation practices, which actually sort of build up your energy bank account and help your body heal and become more robust, versus energy release practices where you it's like you're burning the fuel that's in your storage tank and the flame burns brighter and you feel like you're glowing. You are glowing, but you're also depleting your energy stores. So it's important that we recognize this, because otherwise what will happen, and this may have happened to you, is you'll get to a certain point where those things that brought you a lot of energy initially stop working, and you get these unexplainable crashes or low mood or low libido or, injuries, pain, mental fog. And you can even sometimes install beliefs about yourself which relate to everything good having to come through a process of difficulty first. There is truth to this in some sense, but also what I've noticed is that people who are attracted to the discomfort practices, and I've been one of these people, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Obviously there's good to it, but these people can also be attracted to things which deplete them unnecessarily because of their habit of making things harder for themselves. And so that is satisfying to that pattern of making things hard for yourself, but it's not necessarily helping you in the long term to build up your overall energy levels and your creative capacity and your healing capacity and your robustness as a human. So what's going to happen when you start resting more and when you start eating more of the right stuff, healthy stuff? When you start giving yourself more decompression time, introducing softer practices, cultivation practices like Qigong and all of that, rather than just smashing the gym with that intensity every day, first thing that's going to happen is your body's going to start to change. You're going to start to look different. And often your body will gain some weight. It will look a bit less ripped. If you're one of those really lean people, it will look a bit more inflated and full. And there is a benefit to this because that storage is allowing you to kind of build up your system so that it can start to process things. Now, there's an interesting thing that happens here where you can be healing and look worse. You can be healing and feel worse. You can feel sluggish. Sometimes that's just a much needed rest season starting to begin. And if you immediately pull the pin on that and you doubt that and you just go back to the things that, make you look lean or energize you in the way you're used to, then you're kind of trying to stop that season of repair and recovery, that kind of wintry hibernation aspect of your life, and you won't benefit from it. And often a lot of the people who have, a lot of water retention and puffy faces or sort of constantly seem to have that layer of belly fat and stuff, what that is, that's just the flip side of being stressed. Okay? So people tend to go one of two directions with stress. And sometimes people flip from one way to the other as like a correction process. The body is pretty amazing like that. Some people get skinny, some people get overweight. But often the overweightness of stress is just kind of puff and inflammation and water retention. And the skinniness isn't necessarily like a lean hybrid machine type of skinniness. It's more of like a depletion. So I've looked really good at points in my life. Like I've looked muscular, jacked, externally you'd think, oh my God, what a specimen, but I've actually not been doing too great. And then when I start to rest and recover, I just feel so sluggish and so low. And so this is the example of that. What I notice when I'm doing well, recently I've been doing pretty well, a lot better, is I have more stable energy and I'm just calmer. So the crashes don't hit me as much. And the highs don't feel so much like I've had a coffee. I feel more stable throughout the day. I sleep better, I sleep well, but I don't feel like I need as much sleep. And through the day, I have a sense of lightness. My muscle tone is nice and relaxed and released. I enjoy my food, I enjoy the sun, I enjoy going slow. The key thing is always modulation of stress. It's like managing stress, the right levels, because we all need stress. But it's good to, it's quite an intuitive process. You're going to have to track your own body, the way you respond. It's good to have peaks of stress, but just not to sustain them for too long. So an example is like with ice baths and stuff, or with like ocean dips or something like that. Do that stuff, but don't necessarily stay in too long. Repetitively do that, but just dose it so gradually. Don't think that you need to go from 0 to hero and spend fucking 10 minutes in a really cold ice bath. Like, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can prove something to yourself. And your mind can go beyond what's healthy for your body as well. A lot of the time, the people who are attracted to doing these really hard things don't necessarily need more of that. They just need to rest and chill out more and let their body recoup. And then they would be laser focused and sharp. And they'd get so much more done rather than like pushing so hard to get less done. And a lot of the people who are sort of not pushing enough, they're not attracted to that content anyway. They're resistant to the go get it, be uncomfortable content and all of that way of thinking. So it's kind of like the things you're attracted to, you sometimes need to do a bit more of the opposite. Start with small doses of stress. Have peaks of intensity throughout your day, but don't spend a lot of time at that high peak. Make sure you come back down into a more relaxed state. And you'll notice that initially this feels unfamiliar for you, but you'll also notice that after accessing a really deep restful state, especially while awake, not just having naps, but restful wakefulness, you'll feel clear and energized, and you'll be like, oh my God, I've got all this time back. So we're talking things like meditation, we're talking things like pressure therapy, where you put a weighted medicine ball or dead ball, 15, 20 kilos or heavier on your chest, and you just breathe into it and you lie there and relax your muscles. We're talking non-sleep deep rest. We're talking yoga nidra, going for a nice long slow walk in nature, listening to some music. We're talking about accessing states of regulated, harmonious continuity and flow, which don't involve being super high energy and which also don't involve just being asleep. There's a difference between, sleep is fantastic and you should definitely make sure you get enough, and never fight sleep or resist sleep. If you need it, you need it. It is what it is. You obviously have burnt the candle a bit and you need to rest. But it's also important not just to either be super high stress or asleep. It's important to be able to modulate and to be able to work with the spectrum in between. So this is why you need those non-sleep, deep rest type things. And you need to explore the spaces between high excitation and really pushing hard for a set amount of time. Get a real, a peak signal for your nervous system to adapt, to change. And then you need to explore the depths of relaxation so you can understand where you're actually sitting. A lot of people there's too much noise, there's too much generalized chronic ongoing stress, but there's not enough contrast. And there's not enough time ramping up and ramping down. So not only do we need contrast in our life between high and low energy states, we need transitional phases. We need rituals and routines and conscious practices which help us to affect that. So you still need to have the peaks. You still need to have the lows, the rest, the naps, the sleeping for fucking 9 hours. It's just, you need to explore the space in between more consciously. Yeah, don't be afraid of letting your body kind of autocorrect a bit, you know? Like if you're doing the right things in moderation and you make changes slowly over time, patiently, and you actually track how you're feeling with those changes, then you're going to save yourself so much stress, so much time, so much money that you would otherwise have spent on like diving into all of these different methods of like health or healing, and almost having that fad approach. Sometimes spending a shit ton on supplements and going into all that stuff, or like thinking that you found the next best protocol, it's just a symptom of the same stress and reactivity where you're so urgently trying to solve something about yourself. And so, yeah, you're doing the right things, and yeah, they might help you, but they also might stress you out because you're just trying to make changes too rapidly. And I can't tell you how often I see this. And I've been in the, I guess, training, fitness, mindfulness, health, wellness space for a long time. People just make changes too quickly, and they're just too in a rush for things to be different. And in the process of trying so hard to make changes, they end up creating more problems and complicating everything. And when you do complicate everything, then you have more things to solve. So like you solve 3 of your problems, but you create another 2. You know, you need to just let things adapt slowly. When you look at nature or a garden, you know, let's say you've got a garden and there's like a bunch of weeds or something, and this might not be the perfect example, but it's a decent example. If you just start hacking away at a garden, you're going to be doing a lot of work that's probably not necessary, because if you kind of let it go a bit, nature often does its thing. And sometimes what happens is like the fast growing coverage of the weeds allows the things beneath the coverage of those weeds to cultivate themselves well. It improves the soil health and it draws up nutrients and all of that shit. I'm not a horticulturalist. I don't work with gardens. So the point is you can't really rush nature, but nature does have this incredibly beautiful way of correcting itself. And I think we should just be a little bit more humble in that sense and let nature correct itself. Respect the fact that within a given environment, which may be imperfect, there may be pollutants, there may be stresses, there may be issues with the environment that we can absolutely try to address. But within that given environment, our body is doing the absolute best it possibly can, and our body's incredibly intelligent, and we kind of just need to have a little bit of self-acceptance there, and then work to gradually make healthy shifts to our environment. Staying socially connected, eating the cleanest food we can, but also not stressing out if we eat something that's not super clean. You know, bringing as much meaning and love and creativity and personal character to our work as possible, whether that work is for ourselves or whether that's working in someone else's business. Bring the best of yourself, make the best of your situation. This stuff sounds really generic, and maybe some of you listening to this, actually probably not, you're probably pretty cool. Maybe some of you want some secret hack or some special thing, but the reality is like most people just can't manage to do the most basic, easy things consistently. And most of us just need to wriggle and fight against life a little bit less. I think that's the chronic issue with the modern Western society, and maybe the booming of tech and all of that is part of this. Health isn't about like endless box ticking. Health isn't about proving something to yourself. Health is about being what you are, which is a human being with a body that's always sending signals, whose journey might look a little bit different from the other people around you, but who still needs to be part of, you know, their culture in a healthy way. You're not an island. You can't change everything at once, nor should you want to. You don't need to be happy and healthy. There are happy, healthy people all over the world in all kinds of different shapes and sizes who have all kinds of different approaches, but the one thing that they have in common is the rate of change is kind to their system, and they've ticked all of those boxes, you know. Level of biological health, level of social health, level of psychological health, and all of the networks that come with that. These are the most important things. We're incredibly adaptive beings. We're incredibly complex beings, and if you try to micromanage every little piece, you're just throwing spanners in the works. So, much love. I hope this video was enjoyable for you. I think I'm going to go and make myself some food now. I've just had a bit of a nap. I've got some things that I'm stressing about a little bit. And so I'm pretty proud of myself for just having a nap and for enjoying the afternoon as the sun is getting lower in the sky. And once I've done that, I'm going to take my time to do that. Then I'm going to sit down, take a few deep breaths, appreciate the life that I'm living and the things that are going well. And then I'm going to have a crack at some of those things that are stressing me out to find some solutions. And I'm going to put a timer on how long I dedicate to that. I'm going to actually restrict the time available to find solutions and to create what I need to create. And that's how we need to be living, guys. It's okay to have free time. It's good to have free time. If you don't have that, you're blunting your sword. You need to have space to sit with whatever's just coming up for you, which means working really effectively when you're working, training effectively when you're training, really being with people when you're with them, and then having healthy constraints and boundaries to how much space that stuff can take up so that you can recharge and actually do those things well. That's the difference between someone living a noisy, washed out life and someone with an array of really wonderful things that get done to a high standard while also having a fulfilled sense of self. Alrighty, much love. I'll speak to you soon.